The Indian student has been reduced to a mere data point, a faceless, powerless, voiceless subject. Our current public education system perpetuates a narrative where students aren't given the space to understand and cultivate their voice. In Beyond Data Points, we challenge this present notion. 12 female co-researchers, students at a local government school in Tughlakabad Extension, New Delhi, articulated and expressed their voice through photographs. In this presentation, I'm going to address their conceptions of voice and what they tell us about their lives. The photographs and quotes used in this presentation have been created by these students after discussions on trust, consent, and ethics. But before I delve into analysis and insights, I want to establish the method and theoretical framework that adds credibility to this research. Photovoice is situated at the intersection of feminist theory, documentary photography, and voice work. It lends itself beautifully to a situation where the so-called subjects that are at a disadvantage compared to the researcher no longer are at a disadvantage. This disadvantage could be social, political, or economical. In essence, it refers to a power disbalance. This process of research places emphasis that tilts the balance from doing research on to doing research with. Generally, in the global north, student voice work is done in a structured educational institution like a school. In this case, we purposely chose to do the research outside school hours in their community to ensure that a space was made for conversations that allowed for dissent and divergent thinking. First, a key component of photo voice is advocacy and policy action. But in this context, because the co-researchers didn't want an exhibition of their work, the artistic achievements became very personal. They were scared that their parents would not consider this a form of learning and bar them from any further self-exploration. Number two, work, especially voice work, needs to be unambiguous. In order for researchers and students to develop their ideas of self, it needs to move beyond committees and student councils. Rather, has to be an exploration of what voice means to them. How do they understand it? As Preeti beautifully articulated, samajh ke bina dikkat hoti hai, which translates, without a deep understanding, things become difficult. Number three, conversations around consent are crucial. This helps establish the three main things that make the research ethical. Truth about my intentions of entering the space, giving time to conversations around consent and how they conceptualize it, and trust, where I become vulnerable so that they can be vulnerable with me. Now, for the second part, students' own voice. Where do these students find their voice? Moments of oppression is where they truly understand that they even have a voice. Both school and society are seen as an atmosphere where societal expectations of being a good Indian girl bog them down. Secondly, how do they understand and define voice? Unlike the way feminist theory looks at voice, they look at their voice as something that is very, very personal rather than political. Their expectations out of voice are as simple as having a clean loo. They aren't looking at referring to them in group identities. I want this because I'm a woman, I belong to a particular community, rather than what my heart wants is what my voice wants, which is how Albia put it. And lastly, how do they develop their voice? They have a consistent expectation in education. Most of these students were part of a Teach for India classroom, and they began to compare their experience of education with their peers as well as their parents, and realizing education should be related to our life and even give us work. Lastly, I would like to conclude by situating this research in the present context to say that if we want our children to be informed citizens of tomorrow, we need to hear and recognize their localized conceptions of voice and make space for them to express dissent as well as their experiences. Thank you.